Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room for, it's not even the co-main event, it's not even the co-main event for UFC 251. It's the second fight on the main card. It is a rematch between Rose Namajunas and Jessica Andrade. And this is a really interesting fight because a lot of time's passed but not much has happened since. Obviously Andrade lost the belt to Zhang Weili, and then we had the awesome fight with Zhang Weili and Joanna as well. And I'll be honest, if I'm a strawweight watching that, I'm feeling inspired to get into the gym. Mystery's just dropped his phone onto his face. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quick talk through the fight, the stats, and then I'm going to watch the fight, the previous fight, and just kind of talk through what I'm seeing. Obviously, we know what happened in that fight. It was the slam from the Kimura trap. There's a reason why that happened, and I'm going to talk about that as we go through it. Okay, so it blows my mind that Rose has only had, she's 9-4, 13 fights. It's crazy considering how prolific she is in this division and how well we know her. Andrade, on the other hand, 20-7, and she's kind of had two careers. I mean, she was a bantamweight previously, and she came down 20 pounds, but carried that strength and that power with her, which is obviously the devastating power that we saw in the previous fight. Rose has got the height and reach advantage. 4 inches in height, 3 inches in reach. She was winning that fight, in my opinion, quite comfortably up until the point where she was slammed, and that's why this rematch is interesting, is because Rose was already doing the right things. Like she was already outpointing her, she was already landing clean strikes and not really getting hit. She was already frustrating her. She went for the Kimura trap, I think twice in the first round, and we'll watch it in a second, obviously, but she went for it twice in the first round and she was able to attack immediately. That's the benefit in that position, is you're locked onto a limb and you can immediately start scrambles as soon as you land in whatever position you land in, or you can initiate the scramble from standing. She allowed Andrade to elevate her when she was in that position. And the first time when she was slammed in an advantageous position, so she was able to attack, which further reinforced the benefit of that position. So then when she did it the next time around, obviously she was punished for it because Andrade made an adjustment on the slam. The thing is, though, if you Rose and you're looking at that previous fight, you go, well, I was winning until I lost. I could probably just do the same thing again. And then what happened then is that we saw Joanna doing, Joanna did some of the same things against Andrade that Rose did, but just Rose was more effective until the point where she lost the fight. Whereas Joanna was able to maintain it after having a rough first round. She was able to maintain the game plan that Rose could have used the entirety of the fight, and obviously was successful. Okay. Strikes landed per minute, Andrade lands a ridiculous amount of strikes per minute in comparison. So 6.55 to 3.95. She throws a lot of strikes because she throws barrages of strikes. Rose picks her shots. She's an educated striker. She looks for those jabs. She looks for the right hook. She gets her head off the center line when she's throwing her rear shots. She's an educated striker. Andrade is a wrecking ball. When she decides she's going to throw a punch, you get 14 or 15. And they're not educated punches like, I'm going to hit you through your guard and around your guard and up through the guard. The angle of them varies, but it's very much a left, right flow. And they come from behind the shoulders. So this is the reason why her strike count is so high, is because she throws everything in volume. Rose is far more specific. She's still got a very high strike rate, even though she's a very specific striker. Striking defense as well is better for Rose. Striking accuracy is actually better for Andrade, but I think that's a lot more down to the fact that she throws to a point where you just can't get away because she's constantly coming at you. Whereas again, I always say this, the striking stats don't really fully illustrate what's going on. Striking accuracy at 42%. There are probably a lot of feints in there that have been counted as strikes that have missed, which an educated striker, that is a part of your arsenal. And she does use a lot of feints to get hands to draw away from the chin, for example, when she knocked out Joanna. Takedown offense, 76%. It's very much like the main event, to be honest. I think, the ranges are closed down, and the range in the middle is where Andrade is the strongest. She needs to clinch, she needs to control top position, she needs to smother and compress. Rose needs a bit of space. She needs to move, she needs range for her strikes, but she also needs space on the ground to attack. Much like the main event, I think she bookends the skills of Andrade, and I think that's where she wins the fight, either end. Okay, let's just get into the fight. So I'm going to screen record this for the Raptors so they can see what nonsense, because I like to skip back and forth. So, okay, right, the fight's starting right now, and Andrade looks terrifying. So if you're Rose, you're coming into this fight, you want to be on your toes. You don't want to ever be standing in the same spot, because Andrade's attacks are straightforward. She rages and rushes, and she closes distance fast. But if you've got good lateral movement, so right, the fight started, you can immediately see Rose is adjusting her angle. And she's prying and feinting with that lead hand. See, this is what I'm talking about with striking accuracy. There's a lot of movement with that lead hand she's not even trying to hit her with it. She's trying to see what Andrade does with her hands. Does she reach out to catch? Does she cover up? Does she level change? She's trying to smoke out the attack of Andrade at the moment without overcommitting. Like this, I mean, this footwork's really nice. Footwork's beautiful. Head movement's beautiful. She's using great feints. She's not really crossing her feet hardly ever, which is a bad mistake a lot of people make. And a mistake that you don't want to make against someone that covers distance quickly, because if your feet are together, double legs and elusive movement is very, very difficult. But I mean, okay, so we're what, 52 seconds in. Constant moving back and forth. So try and see Rose look at that beautiful counter hook as well. Head position and space. I'm going to skip it back. Sorry, this is where it gets confusing for the Raptors. So I've skipped it back to 4:10 there. Right. At this moment here, Andrade pressures forward. Watch how Rose constantly does this in front of her. Like if you're Andrade's perspective, Rose is doing this. If you're trying to trap her against the fence panel, it's the last thing you want her doing. You want her still so you can drive her against it. And as Rose is moving back and forth, because Andrade is trying to chase her, she makes herself vulnerable to a beautiful pivot counter. Like you can see Andrade you can tell she just doesn't know when to commit. She doesn't want to commit. She commits because she gets tagged. And as she rushes forward, she gets hit with 2 more shots, and Rose immediately builds frames and backs up. So then they're back in Rose's range, and now Andrade's already damaged. She's already cut. So a minute's passed, she's done nothing of significance, and Rose has already got a good measure on her. Good low kick from Andrade, but through at the time when Rose was moving away, so it minimizes the power. Again, a benefit in being on your toes. Rose now switching stance as well. It's just constantly giving different looks to quite a one-dimensional fighter. If that one dimension works for you and you can make it work consistently, then stick with that one dimension. But in MMA, you're always going to hit a ceiling with one dimension. And what Rose is doing here is she's showing that, and she's frustrating Andrade. Now Andrade's managed to clinch her up against the fence, but Rose is on the Kimura trap. But look how she lands. Her ass didn't even touch the floor. She landed with her feet. So this is the second one. She's elevated. And the position as she comes down, I mean, the referee gets in the way, but you can see as she comes down, she doesn't land in a vulnerable position, and she's immediately attacking an arm, kicks her off, and back to her feet. I mean, what was that exchange? 20 seconds? So she's in on the clinch. She elevates her at 317, slams her once, she puts her foot on the floor, doesn't even land, keeps the Kimura position. Andrade picks her up, tries to slam her towards her head this time, but Rose throws her legs over and lands on her back. Now she's attacking the arm. She's straight on an arm attack, which means now Andrade has got it in the back of her head that if she goes for that position again, she has to be more devastating with the slam, because she doesn't want to be defending submissions immediately. And all that effort has gone to nothing, because now she's back on her feet. And Rose is moving, she's tagging her. Takedown attempt from Rose as well. Probably not even because Rose is that interested in having a takedown, because immediately when they get back to her feet, she separates. It's just to keep Andrade on the back foot, to keep giving her new things to deal with. Because Andrade wants you to stand still and throw punches with her. That's her kind of game. Any of this kind of movement and elusive stuff is just going to wear on her, and it's going to make her frustrated. See, Rose is starting to slow down a little bit now, but she's starting to see you can already see that there's a difference in Andrade's posture. She's already starting to reach for things because she's being tagged. And this is the difference with, like, if you throw power shots all the time, you need a big wind up. And of course, if they land, they're devastating, but that's if they land. Rosie's landing with 20, 30, 40% power shots. And even though they're not really hurting her, you can see the reaction it's getting. They're effective. Like, there's no rush here for Rose. She's very, very well paced in this first round. Like, literally, if she could have replicated this first round 4 more times, she'd have walked away with the belt without getting a mark on her face. Like, I mean, she controls the pace, slows it down really nicely. Lovely counter shots as she's moving away as well. And I think Rose does prefer someone that's moving at her. Lovely little knee there. Rushes forward to try and get the finish. See, Rose is quite happy to grapple. She's not bothered about being on the floor with Andrade as long as she's got space to work. It's when she's slammed to the floor that she doesn't want. So I don't even think she's going to be too concerned about grappling with Andrade. I think she feels like she's the better fighter all around. She just has to negate that big power that Andrade has as a threat. Lovely neck attack here. But, like, see, she separates and is straight back into kicking. Again, she's not really, really forcing the takedown. She's managing this fight. She's cruising here. 45 seconds to go in the first round. 21 strikes to 6. Head strikes, that is. Lovely work. No rush at all. Keeps trying to read her for that counter left hook. Maybe that's something she'll look at in this next fight around, because she got timing down. That's one benefit of this being a rematch. I know, although she lost the first fight, she's got a good 5 minutes of, you know, beating Andrade up in the most live sparring session that she could have had with her. So she's got a good read on her right now. Right, I'm going to skip through because we get Andrade clinching in the last 10 seconds, but I want to get through to the second round now. Yeah. I mean, the replays just show it again. Just lovely footwork. In and out, coming around the guard, tagging her, snapping her head back. So she's locked onto the Kimura here and lifts. I wonder if we get a better angle of this slam. Watch how she manages this slam as she falls. She's got the first thing that lands, I would say, is a foot. Wrecking ball, Andrade's body, head, but then eats a knee. You know, wide open because her punches are coming here and the channel in the center's open. Right, start the second round. Rose is looking very confident. Andrade looking a bit marked up around her eye, bit of bruising. Yeah, she knows she's got a work cut out for her. That's the other thing you got to bear in mind is Andrade's perspective of that first round. Does she completely write off the fact that she was getting lit up in that first round because she got the finish? I mean, does that reinforce, it doesn't really matter what happens, at some point I can get my hands on you? I mean, she's even swinging a miss in here. And you can tell that she's swinging arm punches because her torso's staying square as she's doing it. Again, it's frustrating. She's frustrated, and that's why she's punching like that, because she doesn't want to swing a miss like that. I mean, that's Matador type stuff from Rose. It's beautiful. But it changes the way that Andrade punches, because if she feels like she's going to land, she'll throw much wider with much more momentum. She feels like she's going to miss, she throws arm punches because it doesn't throw her whole balance off. See, like, you can see her feet are crossing over. I mean, lovely work by Rose again. She's cruising. She's hands are down. I mean, she's moving back a little bit too quickly for my liking, but she's not getting hit, so I can't really complain. Jabs, just stinging that jab. I mean, again, and I'll say it again, like, Rose will look back on, if she looks back on this fight. Some fighters don't like to watch their fights back, which blows my mind. I mean, it is the best bit of research that you could do. If Rose is smart, she sat down with Trevor Whitman and she's watched this fight back, and they've identified what went wrong, and they've also identified all the things that she was doing really well. And I think she would come out with more confidence if they did that than if she didn't watch the fight at all and just kept that perception of what happened in her mind. Yeah, jabs, just tap, 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 and then she's out of the way before Namajunas before Andrade can land anything. And she can maintain this. She did it against Joanna. You know, beautiful head movement. I almost feel like that was a point that she made against Joanna, because she got the knockout the first time around. Second time around, she beat Joanna at her own game. She outpointed her for 25 minutes. We know that she's got that in the gas tank. We know that she can pace herself for 25 minutes. It's that one real big problem area. And the truth is, if these two ladies fought each other 10 times, the likelihood is that Rose would probably win 8 of them, because technically she's the better fighter. It's always that intangible, that big power. I mean, every time I'm watching Andrade fight, I always think back to what Goldie used to say when he was commentating. He'd always go, her nickname, Joe, translates to pile driver. And it stuck in my head because, I mean, you could literally press a button at the same time each fight and know what Goldie was going to say. And that was one thing. Yeah, okay, I'm going to pause it. That was one thing that Goldie said quite consistently, which stuck in my mind because it's perfect. It's the perfect nickname for her. Okay, so we're 2:12 on the clock. You can see Rose she's started for the Kimura, but she's not got her arm in the right position right now because Andrade's got her head in the way. Okay, so now she's on the Kimura. Right, now they've elevated 207. So you can see Andrade's lifting her here. Good position on the lift as well. Getting her hips in. She's got her arms in a real strong position to be able to elevate Rose. But watch out how Rose comes down. Oh, that just looks ugly. I mean, there's no way that's ever going to work out well for you landing in that position. Because Rose doesn't take her over in a way where she could get her feet. She goes head first this time. Picks her up and slams her. Now, one thing that is worth noting is if you pick somebody up and intentionally slam them on their head, you get disqualified. And there was a bit of a debate around this after the fight had happened. If you intentionally, so I'll give you an example. Bob Sapp against Nogueira, and this is showing how many cobwebs I've got in my brain. That's an old fight from way back in Pride. Bob Sapp picked Nogueira up and tombstoned him like WWE, like spiked him on his head, spiking. If you pick somebody up and intentionally slam them onto their head, it's illegal. If you pick somebody up when they're locked onto a submission and they happen to land on their head when you slam them, that's their fault. And I like this rule because say if you're in guard, say if someone's clamped onto an arm and you're in an armbar position, if you pick that person up, they've got the opportunity to let go of that submission. If they choose to keep a hold of it, then they accept the consequences of it. There's no argument in this fight. Rose was locked onto a Kimura position. If she could have done, as soon as she'd landed, she'd have cranked that up Andrade's back and dislocated her shoulder socket. You get what's coming to you if you're clamped onto a submission is the rules, and they're fair rules. You know, same thing in a triangle position. If somebody picks you up in a triangle and slams you, if you're unconscious, it's game over. You could have let go of the triangle and saved yourself. Rose opted to stay on the arm, which is why the victory was awarded to Andrade. But, you know, I know I keep going back to the same thing. Andrade she's a power pack. She will get a hold of you and slam you onto the canvas. She will punch through your head as hard as she can with flurries of chaotic looping punches. But that's the facet in the game that she controls in this fight. And if Namajunas can control that fire, if she can fire blanket that, if she can put a helmet over that hand grenade and not deal with that full force every time she encounters it, she's going to find herself winning a 25-minute decision quite comfortably. She might even find a finish. It's all about the question of, can Namajunas get a hold of her? Can Andrade get a hold of her? And can Namajunas negate that big power? It's a great fight. It's great to see Namajunas back in the octagon. I'm a big fan of hers. I think she's an excellent fighter. I always am interested to see what Trevor Whitman can transfer to an intelligent fighter as well. And I think Andrade, especially in this weight class, is a unique problem for anybody to deal with. And many, many people have struggled to deal with it, including Rose the first time they met. It's going to be a good one. Enjoy the fights. Catch you next time.